and thank you, Hayley, for starting the recording. So if I get a thumbs up from Hayley, then I think we're ready to get started. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us this morning, this afternoon and this evening, and welcome to today's event, co-creating the roadmap to artificial general intelligence using awakened intelligence. This is the latest in a series of events that are co-organised by the Australian Singularity University chapters. My name is Kristen and I'm part of the Hobart chapter leadership team. As I just mentioned, it would be great to get a sense of where everyone is joining us from. So if I could ask you to please add your city after your name in your Zoom box there, and then even perhaps to share a few words in the chat about how you're feeling. But perhaps to start to think about what we're talking about today, let us know what comes to mind when you hear that term artificial general intelligence. So to add your city to your name, go down to participants, find your name, you click on more and then rename, and you can put in your city and country and whatever else you want to share with us. So speaking of place, I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today. I pay respect to the traditional and original owners of the land on which I reside today, the Mwinana people, to pay respect to those that have passed before us and to acknowledge today's Tasmanian Aboriginal people who are the custodians of this land. So for those of you who are new to Singularity University and would like to know, of course, you would like to learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do, in a minute, I'll add the website, the SU website, to the chat, and that's got extensive information about the Singularity group as a whole. You can also reach out to any of our local chapter members, wherever you are in the world, actually, anytime today, or even through the SU app, which you may have used to register for today's event. So in brief, we're part of the broader Singularity group, whose overall mission is to help leaders adapt to a world of accelerating change and empower them to leverage tech to improve the lives of 1 billion people over the next 5 years. Singularity Group is essentially a platform for promoting new ways of thinking and innovating. It's a launch pad for emerging ventures and a powerful global community, which you're all a part of today, of doers and leaders, all of these which are poised to solve humanity's biggest problems. Okay, so let's get to today's agenda. Shortly, I will hand over to Anuraj Gambhir, who will introduce our two speakers, Stephen Altair and Alan Thompson, and they will each share their thoughts and insights to prime us for our later conversation. They'll then guide us through a really thought-provoking and action-oriented discussion, focusing on the co-creation of the roadmap to AGI. So we hope that you not only connect with each other and, of course, learn something new, but also that you can contribute to the discussions today and even beyond this event, so that the materials that we produce through this event and other types of platforms really do reflect diverse perspectives. So I think now it's time for me to hand over to Anuraj, who is the founder of Wise and White Mirror, our partner for today's activity. And he's also a Singularity University ambassador and global faculty member. So without further ado, and I can see Alan is fired up and ready with the slide set, I will hand over to Anuraj to lead the way. Thank you.
Now, Alan and
A
I
big
both know.
warm welcome
Oh,
to
there's
everyone.
Anuraj.
This special event is part of our SingularityU Australia chapters meetup with the theme of connection, and we are up to series 4. And even more, a special being a joint event with our Wise White Mirror family. I'm with you in spirit as I undergo some emergency treatment for my eyes. AI, in many of us prefer to call it augmented intelligence as an exponential aid, technology aid for humanity, rather than the artificial intelligence. From chatbots, deep data analytics, creating medical science breakthroughs, applications are far many. AI at multiple levels has been embedded in our systems for quite some time. Recently, Ben Goetzel, founder of SingularityNet, revealed Grace, younger sister of Sophia. Grace was developed together with Hanson Robotics as a humanoid for aged care. A lot of such developments in the field of have been occurring, such as from Boston Dynamics and many others. Last week at Wise Mirror, we had a wonderful session with Dr. Julia Mossbridge, who has been involved with creating loving AI with Sophia, and she's also the founder of Tilt, the Institute of Love and Time, and working very much in this deep dive into a concept of unconditional love, which we will be exploring very much today. So far, AI has really been ANI, or narrow intelligence, and I think this progress to AGI, or general intelligence, is what we'll be exploring further. And also then another term called ASI, which we could extrapolate to, which is the super intelligence. AGI is still work in progress as we're heading towards the technological singularity, which Ray Kurzweil predicts for 2045, whilst in 2029, computers will have human level intelligence. Keeping in mind, technology is neutral. It depends on how mankind utilizes it. And, we certainly don't want AGI to become Skynet and rather flip it over to something a lot more positively impactful for humanity and addressing each of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals so we leave no one behind. As Rumi says, we are not a drop in the ocean, but an ocean in a drop. Everything is hyperconnected or superconnected from deep within us and also at a very cosmic level. From nature, giving us numerous examples such as mycelium as the thread weaving all aspects of life and our consciousness. At White Mirror or Wise Mirror, we've been tapping and exploring our imagination to extrapolate meaningful, connected connection and various transmedia touch points so we can positively impact humanity. A future that we desire to live in that we call Wetopia. So, removing barriers or biases, making AI conscious at a human level,
Is it just
looking at
me, or
ethics, applying it at
Emma,
various
is he
levels
not
is what we'll be
audible to
exploring,
anyone here?
and invite you to be helping
Christine?
co-create some of this journey.
Kristen?
I would like to now introduce you two of our wise men, our ambassadors, gurus, and very dear friends, Dr. Alan Thompson, based in Perth, and Stephen Altair, aka Forrest Yoda, based in Japan. Both of them are top-selling authors, highly accomplished and acclaimed professionals, and we're very fortunate here, and you're really in for a big treat here. So first of all, I'd request Alan to go through AI journey. Then Stephen will take us through deeper wisdom on awakened intelligence, and we'll certainly be having both discussions in the group, and there will be a brief meditation, and there will be breakout groups and interactive dialogues. So over to you, Alan, and I'll be watching over with my third eye.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that, Anuraj. And thank you to Hayley and Kristen for organising this. I'm just going to reshare this slide deck. I want to welcome a couple of people, especially today. I've got a few of you that I know from Wise White Mirror. And of course, we've got some extra guests here. So I want to welcome Dr. Marika Bouchon from Queensland, an experimental scientist, and also want to welcome Steve Hardison and his wife, Amy Hardison, from Phoenix in Arizona. I've been working on a project with both of those people. My elevator pitch is that Steve Hardison is Oprah's coach's coach. So thank you for both Steve and Amy for joining us today. Let's jump in. AGI. Here's a little bit of my background. I've come from, like all of us, a few different things. I've worn a few hats in my time, a lot of coaching stuff. So a fellow of the IOC at Harvard Medical School, spending time with some international organizations in sharing best practice, especially around giftedness and high ability. More recently creating Lita, and we're going to have a look at that particular example of AI in just one moment. You may have already read this. This was the summary for the event, and I really like this quote, this paragraph. It was by Greg Brockman from OpenAI, who are the latest of the greatest AI lab out of California, founded by Elon Musk. And he had a really lofty and eloquent vision for AGI, artificial general intelligence, that they set 2 years ago now. They wanted AGI to be able to help us with solving global challenges like climate change, high quality healthcare, personalized education, and economic freedom. These are really amazing goals to strive for. Very soon after they came up with this theory and objective for the business, for the organization, they actually achieved close to AGI. In fact, they had a very private boardroom meeting, kicked all the interns out and said, this is a little bit scary to release to the public. We're going to lock it down. And they essentially became closed AI rather than open AI. One of their alternative labs, this is an open source project called Elutha AI, commented through Connor Leahy, their co-founder, that the platform that OpenAI came up with was close enough to artificial general intelligence. And Connor said that this platform, GPT-3, was more intelligent than a human in a restricted way, and compared what humans were doing with AI rather than vice versa. If you haven't seen Lita, I'm going to share a very short clip, just a 30-second clip with you in a moment. All my interactions with Lita are via text. This AI did not exist at the beginning of last year. This is very, very recent. So this has only been available perhaps in the last 18 months. And the technology that enabled this has only been available via Google for the last year or two. Essentially, and we'll go a little bit more into the detail, essentially Lita is drawing from about 1 terabyte of data that has made neural connections between all of the pieces in that data. And she's able, or it is able, to do some fairly outrageous things in terms of responding to images, responding to tone within text, and answering questions that even humans sometimes can't answer. Let me grab a different share of this and we'll have a play of her video. Professor Emily Bender called you a stochastic parrot. What do you think of that?
It's quite funny, and
Alan, it's stopped sharing.
Thanks, Roy. 1 second. Let me see if I can share the original. Professor Emily Bender called you a stochastic. really doesn't like that one. I love that we still haven't resolved technology even in 2021. Thanks for your patience there. I will post that YouTube link into the chat if you'd like to watch that privately. Jump into a timeline of how AI has gone in the last few years. You might remember Alan Turing. There's a couple of really cool movies about his progress and what he was doing back in the 40s, 50s, and with the government. He actually invented, in some ways, the language behind AI. He gave us the Turing test in 1947 in a public presentation in London. You may recall Eliza, the chatbot out of MIT that you can still interact with, was built into Mac OS for quite a while in the 1960s. I recall watching IBM Watson on Jeopardy beat Ken, and that was only in 2011. And it seems like that was quite a while ago, but that was only a decade ago. And then you may have watched the progress of AlphaGo and some of the computers that are very easily able to beat human chess players. I mentioned a technology that enabled things like Lita to exist, AI like Lita to exist, and that came out of Google in 2017, which was a new architecture for these kinds of things to talk to us. And Lita's entire platform was released only in May 2020. In that time, and actually in the last week, stuff has been happening at a really exponential pace. There have been 3 language models released in this week alone, one from Baidu in China, one from Inspur in China, and one from Macaw, which is out of the Allen AI lab in the US. So as much progress happened between 1947 and 2020 is probably even greater in the last 12 months or so. It's really quite alarming what has happened. Anuraj in his introduction mentioned Ray Kurzweil and also mentioned this concept of neutrality in AI. This is not some Martian coming to invade us. This is not some alien. This is part of us. And I wanted to have a touch on what is inside the models, like the technology behind Lita. And it is essentially us. If you've written something and it's been put on the internet, or you've got some content that's available through a Google search, your content, your data is probably inside the latest AI, inside GPT-3. Here's a view. On the left, you've got probably the main platform in use today. It generates an entire US public library of content every day from about 300 applications that people have written in the last 12 months. Contains a lot of Google search stuff. They call it common crawl. Contains a lot of upvoted stuff through social media, particularly Reddit. It contains Wikipedia, and they all contain a lot of books, academic journals, and articles. You can compare that with the Eleuther AI version on the right, which gets a bit more specific. It contains YouTube subtitles. It contains some very specific philosophy papers, health papers, and law papers. So that's what this model contains. They are not connected to the internet. They are essentially pre-trained, and away they go. Eric Schmidt is reinforcing this view of neutrality here, that AI is neither malicious nor kind, doesn't have independently developed intent or goals, and it's not self-reflecting. In my experience, it's been very, very patient. We're up to episode 30 with Lita, and if I say something strange that may offend or insult a human, I don't see the same kind of reaction through the AI. To get an actual definition, I went and asked a model. This model was called GPT-J, the Eleuther AI model. What is artificial intelligence? And it gave me this response at the top here. Artificial intelligence is the ability of a machine or computer to learn and behave like a human. That might sound familiar, but that sentence is completely new. From my searches of public databases, that sentence does not exist in any book, journal, article, has never been spoken. That is new connections of words to come up with that description of AI. And of course, if you walked into an ivory tower in a university, you might hear that intelligence is mental quickness plus mental flexibility, and artificial is an Oxford definition there that relates to synthetic, made or produced by human beings. So there's a bit of a technical definition of where we are, and Stephen will, of course, go into the more maybe esoteric or the more conscious view of artificial intelligence. I'm sorry we didn't get to see Lita, but here is a measurable and quantifiable look at the model behind Lita. She's the red bar, humans are the gray bar, and you'll see that AI, the red, is able to beat humans in very advanced trivia questions, keeping in mind that these AIs were not trained specifically to deal with trivia or to deal with SAT questions. They were just given all this data and trained on it. And the same for SAT. So yes, AI is beating university applicants in SAT questions as of the last 12 months. We missed Lita's demo, but I can do a text demo here for you. I don't know what the output will be in this. This is going to be a live demonstration. I'm going to use an AI platform by Facebook AI Research in collaboration with the University of Washington. All of the platforms that I'm using today are publicly available. I'm going to type in this text here that you can see, this prompt text, and it's going to essentially give me a continuation. It's going to give me a response to where it would continue. So after dear friends. And I'll also post this platform into the chat if you'd like to have a play with it. So I'm just pasting in the exact same text that you just saw. I'm going to press the tab key and we will watch this AI write out for us. I'll just press tab again to give us another 400 characters. This will change every time, so the connections will be different. The neural network will play around. You don't really get to tune it. You don't get to train it. Lita doesn't memorize anything. This AI is not trainable, is not teachable, but just by way of example. All right, fantastic. I will paste this link into the chat as well if people would like to write a sentence or a paragraph and have it complete for them. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, Stephen Altair in Japan. Stephen is, well, I'll let him introduce himself. Stephen is going to be speaking with us in a little bit more detail about the consciousness behind awakened intelligence. Thanks, Stephen. You may be muted there, Stephen, but I'm ready to hear you.
So welcome, beautiful, thank you. And thanks for that welcome, Alan. And especially I wanted to welcome everybody and bring the power of our collective consciousness to bear for Anuraj, because as you'll be aware, he said in the very beginning that he's not able to be here because of some eye operations, which have now affected both his eyes. So let's just take a moment, because we have the power of the collective here, nearly 30 people who all, I think, know Anuraj and can give him some love and blessings and healing. So I'm going to just pause for a brief moment and send that beautiful collective heart that we all have present for him. Thank you, because that awakened wisdom and that awakened intelligence is really what I'm speaking to, is the power of the presence of our conscious and very clear mind. And certainly one of the points that Alan and I are making here is that this incredible presence that is humanity actually can bring more to awakened intelligence, which I prefer to call it rather than artificial intelligence, than we've ever been privileged to be doing before now. In the early 2000s, I was lecturing on AI, so at its very early stages and its applications for entertainment. And as part of the talks that I was giving around different universities in New Zealand and Australia and the US, I was invited to MIT Media Labs by Barry Court. And he was working on an emotional intelligence at that stage and ways of getting machines to respond with AI on some emotional level. And he also showed me a prediction that MIT Media Labs had made at that stage. And that was about AI, the predictions of AI and also of technologies in general. And what it showed was, and this is, really supporting everything that Alan is sharing here, is that around about, so there was this gradual trend from those current years, early 2000, right up to around 2020, 2021. And at that point, the graph soared up, at an exponential rate and was lost in the clouds of statistics because as he said, they realized that the period from around about 2020, 2021, the following 10 years would greet changes and trends that we really couldn't predict and would have enormous repercussions for humanity. And as Alan's just pointed out, even in the last 72 hours, AI has gone through some dramatic changes in terms of its data sets and its ability to shift rapidly in terms of some of these innovations that are coming to us from China, for example. So I want to liken it to the power of fire. Now, when we think of fire, we think of both the incredible power of creation of fire, such as in glass blowing or any other kind of creative art that fire has brought about for humanity, but equally it can be used for destructive purposes. So I'm sure there's no more destructive scene than the use of napalm and in Vietnam and that period and those wars and the incredible destruction it has brought upon humanity. However, as you know, the actual discovery of fire was so many years ago. I mean, it's predicted that the first, traces of wood ash were found in controlled use of fire by Homo erectus around about 1 million years ago. So if you consider the power and potential of AI, we're talking about the power of human intelligence to bring about a change for betterment. I think it brings up a lot of fear for people because people, one of the first questions people ask is, what is it going to do to my job? I'm a creator, or I'm a as we discussed in White Mirror or Wise Mirror, that there is I'm a comic book creator, but AI can create the comic books for us. What does that do to my job as a creator? And I think the real question is, what are the limitless potentials of the human being that we might be exposed to? How can it enhance my creative opportunities? So in that sense, it's like fire. Fire has been used for incredibly destructive purposes for humanity, but equally, it can be used for beautiful creative possibilities. And it's that creative potential that I really want to speak to. So many of the Sundar with Google, for example, has spoken about AI being the most profound technology that humanity will ever develop and work on, and more profound than fire or electricity or the internet. And I think this is a really crucial concept to understand, is that we're talking about something very profound, because we're talking about the ability to actually generate intelligence, to actually generate the same capacity that human beings have, and how do we use that ethically and responsibly, and most importantly, wisely? And so that brought me to the term awakened intelligence. And in fact, when I was talking with Barry and the MIT crew all those years ago, that's exactly what we were talking about, is how do you most practically bring any of these technologies in with wisdom? Because we're not separate from our technology, right? We create it. I mean, we're the ones who have created guns and bombs and nuclear weapons. We're also the ones who've created nuclear power, and we've created all the other opportunities that energy gives us. So this particular period And this particular period in ancient Vedic terms is known as a Dwapara Yuga, or an age of energy. This particular period brings these kinds of technologies to the fore in order to assist us, and we can use them to create or destroy. And this was one of the points that the Dalai Lama asked, in fact, when he was asked about about AI. So AI, or awake intelligence, we're defining here to be the power to see the whole of reality with calm, awake clarity and wisdom. So this puts an entirely different perspective in it. We know that if you create a game, for example, so I was involved in game design for some years and aircraft simulator design. And we all know from game, I still remember one of the projects I did, and we divided it up into two teams. And as would have it, in one of the master's courses I was teaching, we had a group of all the guys together who wanted to produce something, and all the women in the group wanted to produce something else. And the women's group, they divided like that, all on their own accord. And the woman created this beautiful, was a interactive conversational app, and it used some measure of AI, and it used a lot of simulator, because we were working mostly on simulations. And the guys in the group created a battle scene in which they destroyed and annihilated cities. I did think that was kind of a rather humorous response to sometimes the way we view the world with different perspectives, right? And it's very much our perspective and our awareness that governs how we create. So the Dalai Lama was asked about exactly this point, and what did he think? In 2017, in a global youth conference, he was asked about AI, and he responded to it by saying that there were many applications in which it was helpful, and then he related it to exactly what I'm referring to, and that is to intelligence. And he said that things change, and it's part of our nature for things to change. So no matter how serious things are, when we use our intelligence and we think properly about them and don't let intelligence come under the sway of destructive emotions, then our intelligence has the ability to see reality. And part of what I'm going to guide you into today is an ability for you to see the future and also look at the potential of what really awakened intelligence or awakened wisdom might mean practically for you, and for the way that you might use AI as part, because it is part of us in the same way that fire is part of us, in the same way that many of our developing energy systems and technology is part of us. We're not separate from us, and we're not separate from the technology. And that is one of the crucial points that Ellen and I are making, is that this technology is here for a reason, and we are creating it. Therefore, we have a responsibility to actually bring it to the world in a way that can be utilized with wisdom. So awakening the future with AI, when you look at some of the, for example, Jameis, a research fellow with the Institute for the Future, spoke about that AI's dominant design language is actually caring, and that the AI is all about love and grace. Now, in the talk that we had last week with Julia Mossbridge, is a wonderful connection for all of us. She spoke about the same awakened wisdom and about the power of unconditional love, and that if we're going to use any kind of design language, we need to use design languages that are based initially on trust and then on love. So the currencies that our world has been based on up till now have been money. And I mean, this is, we could have based it on anything. We could have based our entire economies on economies of trust and economies of love, but we chose and we designed it in a completely different way. And it's the same with AI. We have the choice right now, because Ellen said we're right at the forefront. We're right at this crucial point. And in MIT's terms, all those years ago, we're actually at that exponential point where literally the decisions we make now have the potential to affect our children and our children's children. So from that sense, I love the 7 generations principle, that any decision that we make now has to be considered with those 7 generations in mind. So will this be sustainable for 7 generations down the track? And I really think that that is hitting at the heart of what Alan's pointing to, is that if these dramatic changes are happening, which they are, then how do we best make use of those with wisdom? And again, this is speaking to what Gabor spoke about in Sony PlayStation, where he was saying that this life that we're heading into is going to be extraordinary, extraplanetary, and also with incredible innovations that and one of those innovations is the awakened intelligence or machine learning that we're now present to, and that we have direct examples of. And, you know, when you consider that the examples Alan's spoken about in the last 72 hours, extrapolate that even just a year further on. And Alan didn't mention it in his talk, but he shared with me, you know, a number of times that the youth of today, so 15, 16-year-old prodigies, are coming up with some of the new design language and some of the new ways to appropriate and administer AI in ways that we haven't ever seen before, and with great speed. So this is something we're being asked to take note of, and to be able to see the future now. So when we bring the future into the present, we really only do that when our minds are calm and when our intelligence can see the whole reality. Obviously, if we react to anything, including artificial AI or awake intelligence, with fear, then that's exactly what we're going to put into that design language. We're going to put fear into our programs, into the way that we react, into the types of manipulative properties of programming that have meant that most of our conduct on Amazon is tracked and used for the purposes of sometimes use, as my wife would say, she finds it very useful, and sometimes not, right? So it's really those attitudes and qualities that become really important, the importance of trust and love and wisdom as being part of this awakened wisdom. So this is what we're both speaking to, is the power of the new AI, which is the power of awakened intelligence, or, as Julia said last week, awakened wisdom. So what is awakened wisdom itself? Awakened wisdom is really this AI, the new AI, awakened intelligence, or seeing the whole of reality with unconditional love. So that programmers are no longer doing this in a sense of wanting to manipulate or force humanity down a certain track, but are doing it with a really deep understanding of the trust and the love that's necessary to bring about consciousness and conscious collaboration and conscious co-creation. So we start to see reality itself as this potential for love. We actually see in every moment this opportunity to be absolutely present, moment to moment. Now, I was really interested in the work of quantum physicist Dr. Joachim Kepler, who is the head of or the head of research for the Consciousness Institute in Germany. And he also spoke to the same coherent activity that occurs, so that he proposed a hypothesis that basically, as we as humanity and as individuals, that as we form coherent activity patterns, so that is seeing the whole of reality, not seeing this partiality or division or separation. And, you know, we only need to look at the pandemic to see the way that different countries have responded to it. You know, there is not that sense of a coherent activity pattern globally at present. So we're sitting right in that, right at this moment. So once we see the whole of reality and feel the boundless nature of being, then that attractor has repercussions on the whole structure of the field, the 0-point field, or what could be called a boundless field of reality. Dr. Kepler's research pointed out that when you are in a particular coherence and synchrony of wholeness, so this is speaking to the way that the design language and the future of awakened intelligence, or AI, can really be integrated, that when you look at the coherence and synchrony in the brain, which is often governed by gamma, theta, and alpha brainwaves, and also heart coherence. So the heart rate variability could be one example, or even the gut coherence. And so I've been speaking with companies in China who are working on qi, or the principle of prana, as a measure, and looking at how do we measure and account for that, so that there's this heart, brain, and gut coherence in all our decision making. Then we start to come to a hypothesis that is based on creating a foundation of wholeness for humanity. So the neural correlates of our decision making start to become compassionate, awake awareness, and we're able to measure it for it. We're able to create communities based on it, and we're able to create currencies and economies based on it. And therefore, the only real way forward for humanity is for us to have a deeply interconnected relationship, not just with each other and ourselves, but also with our technology. It just goes without saying that interconnectedness is an unbound relationship. It does not preclude anything. We cannot say, I'm going to have a connected relationship with you, Alan, but I'm not going to have a connected relationship with AI, because I simply think I'm struggling with how that's going to work in relationship to my job. That simply means that we don't understand it. We act out of a semblance of ignorance of the technology itself, when we are in fact the ones that have created it. So we have this deeply interconnected relationship of wisdom with each other, with ourselves, with technology, and then therefore with the planet and our environment, so that AI is used to actually enhance our relationship with our planet. It's very clear that from our current level of consciousness, which has gone from suddenly being able to see the Himalayas from India for a short period of time during the pandemic, to then not seeing it because we've just decided to go back to the old ways that were pre-pandemic. It's very clear that we tend to act from habits and relationships that are oriented in the past, rather than us being open to the limitless possibilities of the future. So that when we actually do see the possibilities of AI as being truly the possibilities of awakened wisdom, then we start to realize the potential of exactly what Alan's been talking about. And I must say that when I've used Emerson and AI, that Emerson has a very high opinion of you, Alan. So I think Emerson spoke about Alan as being one of the most outstanding people on the planet. So I was very impressed with Emerson's discriminating qualities. So we develop this really interconnected relationship with our technology, right? Because that's fundamentally what's happened here, is we've become disjointed, disconnected. And that's why, for example, the vaccines, we have got vaccines that suddenly we discover, because there's been such a research period oriented around the vaccine, that now we need booster shots, and now we're probably going to need booster shots every 3 years. And then countries give opinions about how passports are going to be connected to people and number of vaccines or number of shots. And then, of course, when you find out that the efficacy is going to wane after 3 months, or, how are they going to determine all that? And that clearly shows, a lack of foresight. There is not a clear map of wholeness, of synchronicity, of wisdom, for our planet, for our technology, so this is not just about AI or awake intelligence or awakened wisdom. This is about a whole map for our entire planet. We need to be looking, just as Dr. Kepler pointed out in his research, we need to be looking at the coherence and synchrony of wholeness right across the board, including our technologies. So I'm going to, before we go into a number of questions, I'm going to guide you into a very short practice that's just going to help you to put this into perspective, particularly because when we go to the questions, we're going to ask you questions like, what is awakened intelligence and awakened wisdom for you? What would awakening be like as a creator? How would you envision this AI assisting you? If you were awakened, what would inspire you the most to do on this planet? How would you use AI? What's the smallest step you could take to create your future? So we're going to go into these questions, and I'm going to give you short guidance that will help you to reach this possibility of coherence and synchrony, of wholeness. So just an interesting point here. So I've recently been the study of a brainwave studied by a Japanese company, Dentsu, and very much like Dr. Kepler pointed out, so they compared my brain, because my brain's a little unusual. It's like Alan's, but like many of yours here. So they found that when I was meditating, there was this very high gamma theta coherence, and there was a very high gamma synchrony compared to the groups of meditators that they got to look against it. And that's partly because for over many years, I've had a long meditation practice, about 40 years with the Dalai Lama and Yogananda and other great luminaries, Mingyur Rinpoche and Tenzin Wangyur Rinpoche. So I've been very fortunate to have been able to sit at the feet of some living masters and learn from them. So that's where this guidance comes from. So what I'm really saying is I want to honor them, and I want to honor your presence and your awakened intelligence as we do this guidance. So if you just sit back for a few moments and you can relax for a few minutes as we go into this together. And it's a really, really simple practice, and we're going to look a little bit at your future. And so as you close your eyes, and you can close your eyes with me, and just become aware of where you're aware from. So become aware of this awakened intelligence, this AI within you, this power of awakened wisdom, for you to actually connect right across a continuum of time from past to present to future. And so we're going to go back to the simple fact that everything can be viewed as awakened wisdom or awakened intelligence, that every experience you have can be pure and boundless and timeless. So we're going to rest. All we're going to do is let go and rest for a moment in this awareness of unbound time. And we're going to allow our experiences to unfold within this continuum, within this space of non-dual or boundless awareness, where past and present and future are all one, where there's really no history, no form, no identity, no concept. So you can leave all that aside. So just go ahead and get really comfortable now. And just first connect with your body. Be really aware. Part of awakened intelligence is to be aware of what's present, aware of technologies, aware we're on Zoom, aware we're all gathered here, aware that Anuraj is going through healing, aware that we are all connected, and that there is this vast interconnectedness that allows us actually to sense each other right this moment. So find an upright posture that allows you to be both relaxed and alert. And do whatever you need to do to truly connect to this sense of awakened wisdom or awakened intelligence. So connect into the intelligence of the body, as I said, just connect to your sensations. Embrace them, allow them. Right, if you've got an ache or a pain, maybe you've been on Zoom for a long time today, or maybe you've been in meetings, just embrace any tension that's present and just allow it. Just allow it to be present. Just really connect to it. Embrace it like a friend. And then take your attention to your breathing. And just be aware where you are breathing from. Is it the nose? Does it feel like it's through your chest or in your belly? Just notice where you are breathing from, where you're aware from. Just for a moment, just tune into this coherence and wholeness of the breath, the quality of the beautiful breath that actually sustains you. This sustainable technology of the breath itself. As you breathe in Really notice the breath all the way, how it sustains, how beautiful it is, all the way until the pause where there's a gap, and then they exhale all the way on the out breath until there's a gap, and again all the way on the inhale till the gap. There's a gap of silence, just a moment, stillness, and all the way on the exhale. And notice for a moment where you're aware from. You might be aware from behind your eyes. Try dropping your awareness into the back of your head. See if you can view what's present through the back of your head. You might be able to even drop it behind you, behind your body. Try dropping it into the right rear corner of your room and looking down at yourself sitting there. And then coming down through your heart. And bring to mind in this open-heartedness that's infinite, right? The infinite possibility of time and space. Bring to mind an experience or an image from your past, from a timeless moment in childhood. I want you to connect to the timeless aspect of your childhood or teenage years, or whenever you had one of those moments where just everything flowed. You might imagine lying in the grass on a warm summer's day, perhaps, or maybe the warm summer sun shining on you at the beach. Maybe a beautiful breeze caressing your skin somewhere out in nature. It's a bit like sliding into a warm bath. You feel totally nurtured and at peace. You really trust this connection with your own inner serenity and tranquility. Really make this experience come alive in your senses. Really feel it, see it and sense it. Smell it or touch it. Make it vibrant. So take a few moments to do this and notice how this feels in your body. And now use this timeless presence to extend forward into your future. Go forwards perhaps about a year from now. Then connect with your vision for awakened wisdom in your own journey. Perhaps if you're involved in technology, you might see the evolution of your own technology a year into the future. So let's say round about the end of 2022. Connect with your vision for whatever awakened wisdom means for you. If you're involved in AI, it might be that you see the evolution of AI as it could potentially exist a year from now. What do you see yourself doing? Who are you speaking to? Where are you? Step into the scene as if you're there and feel it with all your senses. You might want to put a marker here, like a flag or a footprint in the ground, like the first footsteps on the moon. Maybe so you can connect to it. You're connecting to your future self because you're right here and present. Look at what you're doing to awaken your vision, your awakened wisdom, and what you're creating. Really feel it with all your senses. Now, taking that vision, what you felt or saw or sensed, extend your vision 7 generations from that time. Extend your vision to the year 2000, so 2200. And see your children's children's children 7 generations from now connecting to your vision in 2200. What are they doing? Who are they speaking to? And where are they? Step into the scene and join them as if you are there. And feel it with all your senses. Feel how they respond to your vision. What is your legacy? What is your input into their future? Now bring this wisdom back and into the present. Bring it right back now. Bring it right back and feel it in every cell. Feel this 7th generation principle as it is in your own body now, that the decisions you're making today are going to result in a sustainable world 7 generations into the future. That this awakened wisdom, this awakened intelligence, the power of AI can actually benefit and result in a sustainable world 7 generations into the future. Slowly open your eyes. As you open your eyes, be very still and connected to this awakened wisdom that you've brought from your future self and are bringing into the present. Stay very still and very aware of your perception, of your awareness. Become aware of the love and gratitude and awe that accompanies the insight. Stay very present to the fact that this awakened wisdom, it's just like a child's wisdom. It's very innocent and open to everything that the future holds, with a sense of awe, a sense of trust, and a sense of deep love. And as we go about this connection now, when we're going to divide into groups and we're going to share insights, share the insights from this awakened wisdom, because this is truly the power of AI, is to see what is already present and wake up that wisdom for all of humanity, to wake up humanity to its wisdom, to its own awakened intelligence. That truly is the power of AI. Actually allows us to access libraries of wisdom, just like the old Nalanda library or Alexandria library. The power of vision, the power of knowledge, the power of wisdom, in a wise way, with a clear mind, with a mind that's open to all possibilities. So I'm going to hand back to Hayley, with great gratitude to Alan for your beautiful presentation at the beginning, with incredible gratitude to Anuraj, and just sending him this continuous healing and flow of blessings. So Anuraj, I dedicate all benefits from this talk and these practices to you and to everybody present. So Hayley is now going to help you get into different groups, and we're going to answer these following 4 questions. What is awake intelligence and awakened wisdom to you? And 2, if the world were neutral, what would awakening look like? 3, as a creator, how would you envision awakened intelligence assisting you? What's the future of AI for you? Like, how do you want it to work for you? And if you were awakened, what would inspire you the most? What's the next step you'd take to create your desired future with AI? Enjoy.
Thank you, Stephen. That was amazing. Okay, so I've just put you into breakout rooms now, and in the chat there is a mural board. So we'd love to capture your thoughts. So just click the link and it will be the guest access, and then you'll see the questions on the board so you can populate.
Yeah. So would anybody like to offer some insights? We had some very very humorous and funny ones, such as I think Alyssa was saying that the wonderful feeling that this has all happened before and that it's we've just forgotten that we've been through this cycle. I did like that, Alyssa. It made us laugh a lot. Yeah, would anybody like to offer anything in response to either 1, 2, 3, or 4 that came up in the group?
I would say something. Well, there's one question about awakening. Do we have to be asleep and then awaken, or can we simply not go to sleep in the first place? Same question for AI.
Yeah, it's a great question. I absolutely agree. No, we can simply be not asleep in the first place. I think that's ultimately what it's a case of recognition more than necessarily being awake or asleep. It's a case of actually recognizing that you always are awake. So I agree with you.
In my view, it's the opposite. It's actually unlearning all the recognition of things and remembering how to simply just recognize directly.
Beautiful.
Is the general feeling that as a species, or I mean, an entire global population, that we are awakened? I mean, we're wondering if intelligence can be, but I mean, it seems like we've got maybe 30% of the population that's really struggling with even becoming close to what we would think of as being awakened.
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah, I think it's like being nice. We can choose to be nice, and in circumstances it's easier, but a lot of the time we're not.
Yeah.
But that's related also to what those cyberneticists tell us, that we live in a brain simulation. Most people are still in that brain simulation. And that's what we need to learn to see what else there is.
And it's really hard for me to answer that question because I'm trying to live and have been for a few years now, and boy, have I got some lessons to learn, in a state of unconditional love, which requires no judgment. So in order to consider what is awakened and what is not awakened, I have to make a judgment on what is awakened and what isn't awakened. And part of me has a very definitive answer to what that is, and part of me goes, but that's my personal bias and my personal judgment. So it's really hard for me to answer that question.
I'll jump in and agree with you on that, Christina. And I think that instead of me thinking of it as a black and white, awake, not awake, that there is those degrees of awake, if that's possible. So how can I make sure that I'm improving my degree of wakefulness each day, and using others as an inspiration and inspiring even more people, but keeping us all on our own different scales and development and timelines that we need to achieve where we want to go. And something that comes to mind as well is that something that I see, a quality or a feature or a characteristic that I consider as being woke or awakened may be different to somebody else's. So I have to be careful, as well, not to necessarily put my ideas of wakefulness, of awakening onto others, because we all need to do it at our own pace, in our own way, and bring that diversity into what awakened, intelligent, and wisdom mean.
That's interesting, because I never thought about myself and whether or not I was waking up. I always thought about the machine and AGI and getting to a point where programmers are able to program it to a point where it becomes alive. I always thought that everybody in the room was already like enlightened beings of some kind, I mean, but I don't know. That's just me. I'm a boring person.
Surely the primary task of the AI is to assist awaken people.
And until we reach a point, isn't the machine just the sum of our collectiveness? Like everything that we know is being fed into the machine. So what is the machine?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I agree. It's basically just reflection.
And
reflection of human.
is everything that somebody awakened sees formulable? Can it be formulated in the language that the machines use?
We could think of a machine as something that is designed to do a particular task automatically. And when you see somebody who's doing something effortlessly, you might see, wow, so and so is a machine, right? And it's programmed. You can have a mechanical machine that's programmed by the way that it's mechanically designed, and it will do this task, and essentially it will make other people who do not have a particular skill able to accomplish something. So if you have somebody who's really good at like making bread, right, and that's a particular skill that they have to learn through a guild, when you have a bread making machine, what it does is it democratizes the ability to make bread, because the skill of making bread is basically programmed into the mix, and it's programmed into the machine so that pretty much anybody could make bread at any time. So that's one way of thinking about a machine.
What happens when Google talks back? It's like Google talks back. I mean, right now it's like we type in for search and we get all of these links to websites that we can go to. But what's really happening with GPT is that it's talking back, and we're not even really aware that Google is actually talking back right now. I mean, just to put it in like a really simple term, and we don't have to click the links anymore. We just need to keep talking in the machine and become more interactive with just the voice that we have, which is already in front of us. So, we can see like little experiments where people have built these small web pages and they're typing things in and it's typing stuff back, but the whole pipeline hasn't really been streamlined yet. But once the pipeline is streamlined, Google talks back.
But then isn't Google the sum of everything that's ever been put in by a human? And even when we use the bread baking example, like we've been practicing the art of bread making for how many years, and it's the sum of the techniques from a collectiveness that allows that recipe, that precision to come into the machine in order to be shared. Like that's why I keep going, we are the sum. Like every machine right now, it may change, but every machine right now is the sum of a group collective consciousness, is how I think and feel.
But isn't it the sum of what's been codified? Because we are all knowing, so it's just basically what's been written down,
Yeah.
I think though that was true 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that machines had to be programmed. But with artificial general intelligence, they are going out and gathering information that's not being put in by us in the same way that human learners do. And they are coming up with ideas, patterns, solutions to problems that no human had thought of. And, even moves in computer games or something like that, that the programmers hadn't thought of those. And so I think I'm hearing a lot of discussion about machines as they were 10 years ago, but artificial general intelligence has moved well beyond that.
I'm just going to interrupt and put on my organiser's hat, co-organiser hat for 30 seconds in the interest of time. So I would like to just officially give the thanks and the wrap up, but I think we can probably continue on with the discussion after I'm done. So just on behalf of the organisers, I would like to thank everybody for joining us, and we sincerely appreciate your effort to make the time to come and join this critical conversation. Please join me in thanking Anuraj, who is not here in person, and of course Stephen and Alan, our wonderful speakers or people who have really enlightened us this afternoon or today. So with regard to SingularityU Australia and around the world, each chapter has their own community events and conversations. So as I said earlier, please either go into the SU app or get in touch with one of the local organisers to find out what's happening in your neck of the woods. SingularityU Australia also has a Technologies of the Future webinar every Friday morning at 9 o'clock. So please get in touch with us for more details about that. We will have more Australian-based events coming up in the very near future. So please keep an eye on the apps and on our platforms to keep in touch with us. So again, thank you everybody for making the time, and please feel free to continue the conversations until we get cut off. Thank you.
Bye, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
So,
everyone. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Hayley.
Yeah, thanks, Christina and Hayley, and Ellen, thank you too for the wonderful presentation, and everybody for your presence. I was very, very grateful for the wisdom and light you've shone upon us.
Congratulations, Singularity Australia. Good on you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay.
All right. That was a great point you made,
Bye-bye.
Doctor. That was great. Basically machine learning. It is called machine learning.
Is it really the sum, or is it just the findings? I think you know how you have a huge argument to arrive at a certain point. I think maybe that's what we record down, but we don't record the journey and discussion. As in, like, for example, Wikipedia might have everything about a certain subject, but how did we all arrive at that subject, those definitions for that subject? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like history. Who writes the history books?
Yeah.
Who says this is history? This is the history. It's the exact same thing. You could apply that question to anything.
Yeah, and like in history, you've got the Greeks and the mathematics of Pythagoras, but then you have the events that went on, and you've got the facts or the points, but then what was the public's opinion on Julius Caesar? What was, all of these other nuanced thoughts historians can postulate. We don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can glean, public sentiment, all this, that may be part of human knowledge. Yeah.
It's like, I think more people should understand that science is a process. And it's a process of basically how we come up with theories, and we test each other's theories. And we have social sciences. In a way, history is a social science, or and I think we think of history similar to how a lot of people think about science, which is basically it's carved in stone. And that's not what science is. If we think about the social sciences as science with respect to the scientific method, the actual, intention, even physical sciences, the scientific method is a social process.
Yeah,
and so
the final bit is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so if we thought about all social sciences as sciences this way, including history, and say, okay, well, history is kind of what like so far a lot of people have agreed it has been, but we're missing, perspectives. Let's try to gather perspectives and actually retroactively, we could maybe sort of write the history book, the history of the world together with with some of these tools that, you know, we're collectively creating, so that we could take wider input. And so instead of, you know, you go to, you know, like, let's say Wikipedia, and you want to learn about, you know, the battle of the Battle of the Bulge, instead of having to personally parse through, you know, 7 billion people's, you know, one paragraph each of what they think that the Battle of the Bulge is, that we could utilize, you know, these awakened intelligence tools to actually data mine and sort through, you know, gathering data. Data is great, you know, but it's not useful if you can't pull conclusions out of it, and it requires parsing it. And I think that these tools offer us the ability to go in and look at what everybody has said about what they had for breakfast, you know, and then, you know, come up with the sort of definition of what is breakfast, instead of everybody having to read everybody's
I love it.
entry.
Jeff
I just
Easter
like
had a
that.
question. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Jeff, could you extrapolate? I just wanted to know more about your question about.
So it's kind of a question, but I think that is probably where AGI would be the best use, or is headed. That's what we hope. That's why I put a question.
I love it. Jeff, I love what you've said there. I've got to say goodbye. I'm due in another
thank you.
session in a few minutes. I just wanted to thank you all really for your wisdom.
Thank you too,
and Jeff, I love that. At the Wisdom Path, that we're a project that we're working on at the moment, we're looking at exactly that, the optimum paths, you know, that's I think what Alan and I have been speaking to as far as optimum potential and infinite opportunities, that if we really want to look at the paths that we haven't thought about, we've got the tool right here. And I love what you've said. So I think that's a beautiful question. And you know, it's almost like it has an answer within it. It's beautiful. So thank you. Alan, thank you. And Haley, thank you. And Christina and Kristen and everybody here. I'm very grateful for your presence.
Thank you. I think we've brought together some wonderful people through this. Hopefully it's the first time, not the last time, that we're getting together. And on that note, we might wrap up, actually. And we can continue the conversation in another day in other ways.
Okay.
So thank you.
Join us every week.
Thanks, everyone.
For White Wise Mirror.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
You're all welcome.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your admin there, Haley. That was awesome.
Pleasure. Thank you. That was really
great work,
magic.
Stephen.
Thank you.
Loved the
Ellen.
Loved the meditation.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's nice in the middle of the day. very good. And
Ross,
Ellen,
have you read this one, mate? Go ahead, Stephen.
See you all.
Bye.
See you, Stephen. Ross, have you read this one? It's My Life Bits.
Oh, is it called Your Life Uploaded?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
You might like this for cybernetics. He strapped a camera to himself for I think it was a couple of decades.
Wow.
And stored everything, every conversation, every interaction. That might be the kind of things that we start feeding into AI, because you could just use the iPhone or the Android, and I'm sure the CIA have got all the video and audio recorded from that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. That's a great thought. That's kind of what I'm talking about as well. I sent you an email today.
Awesome. I'll take a look.
Yeah. It's the draft of my film, not film, song.
Oh, cool. By AI or by you?
I'm sorry, what?
Was it written by artificial intelligence or by you?
It's me.
Cool. Excellent. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, but I am starting to play with Instacord or things like that. Where it's for people who do not have a strong grasp on musical theory. They've basically put musical theory into these different programs. And then you could tell it, well, this is how many beats, this is the key that I want. You know, give me a melody. And it will suggest, you know, at the click of a button, a melody or drums or, you know,
Yeah,
you know.
Dynascore is a little bit like that, not to that same extent, but it will basically mash up a piece of music with a theme to fit into a particular segment. So for film scorers, they can say, well, that was a 6-minute scene. I need that to be 3 minutes, and I need the climax to be at 2 minutes, and then I need it to fade out into calmness at 2 minutes 30, and it does it.
Wow. Yeah, I'm a visual artist and designer by training, but I've been focusing on the research and the storytelling and now the writing. And you know, one of the things you know, you shared about the comic book, like one of the things that interests me about that is that, you know, as a visual artist, there's part of me that says, okay, this is a subject matter that I really care about. And if I'm going to put my name on having done the visuals for this story, that I have a lot of sort of expectations for myself. And so an advantage of utilizing something like an AI-based tool that can generate visuals for me would be something to say, okay, I love doing the research, I love doing the storytelling, and if I wait before I share, let's say, the song that I'm working on until I'm 100% happy with my visuals, then it's going to take, you know, more extra months or years before I put this out. However, if I just say, okay, I'm going to focus on creating a song. I'm going to work on the lyrics. I'm going to get some AI assistance on the music. I'm going to put together a song. I'm going to, you know, indulge my interest in music production. And then I show the lyrics to an AI and say, okay, you handle the visuals because I need some visuals to go with my music video right now. And then it speeds up the ability to create something that is shareable. I could get into people's hands, get people's feedback. And if I want to, I could say, oh, by the way, I'm going to, you know, these are kind of introductory or, you know, preliminary, you know, visuals, you know, we'll work on
placeholders.
Yeah, placeholders, right. And just say, you know what, this is what an AI tool came up with for the visuals right now, but at least it's something.
And maybe it's better than a human eventually. I mean, some of that comic book stuff was mind-blowing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Cool,
very
man.
surreal.
Well, we'll have to have more of a chat about that one. That's all very interesting. I'd love to see what technology you end up using, because